Welcome to a special programme from the South Coast. Coming up in this week's Motor Week, we celebrate the 75th anniversary of Chrysler, based right here in Dover. Also, Ian Royle will be taking a look at the new Peugeot GTI, and Ginny Buckley test drives the new people carrier from Mazda, the Premacy. And we look into the past and the future of one of America's most successful car manufacturers, now making a big mark right here in the UK. And now on Motor Week, Ian Royle comes over all sporty. He goes for a play in the Peugeot 206 GTI.
Oh, the days of my youth. It seems a long time ago now that all you wanted was a cool car to impress your friends, the girls, and of course something to have a bit of fun in. And at that time, the only sort of cool car about was hot hatchbacks. The sort of things like an XR3, an MG Metro, a Nova, a Golf GTI. I went through 3 Fiesta XR2s. But it seems I probably missed out on the one that everyone raved about, which was the Peugeot 205 GTI. There was the 1.6 and later the cooking 1.9 version. A friend of mine had them both and unfortunately kept putting them into hedges. So here is the reincarnation of the 205 GTI. I bring you the new 206 GTI. Is it still as much fun as the old one? Well, yes, absolutely. Now, it's interesting that back in the early 1990s, the hot hatchback market almost died a complete death. Kids didn't want these sort of vehicles anymore. They wanted trendy 4x4s instead. Maybe the age bracket of the GTI market has moved onwards and upwards. After all, these cars are not particularly cheap. Now, I drove the new 206 for the first time last year. Peugeot promised us that they would bring out a GTI version. Here it is, and it's great fun to drive. I have to say I'm slightly disappointed by the exterior looks of the 206 GTI. It's got, of course, alloy wheels, spoilers, a discreet GTI badge at the back, but it doesn't look very much different to the rest of the 206 range. It needs to look a bit meaner, a bit more aggressive, but who knows, maybe Peugeot are saving that up for an even hotter version of the 206 GTI. It's just possible, you know. So many people hark back to the old 205 GTI that, in a way, this 206 version has a real tough act to follow. It's very difficult to say whether the 206 GTI now is as good as the 205 when it was introduced. Times have changed so much, along of course with modern technology. But the 206 is almost alone in the marketplace as a small hot hatch. There's no Fiesta or Corsa equivalent. You really have to look to cars like the Puma to find rivals for the 206 GTI, something I'm sure Peugeot won't be too worried about. So what's the GTI really like to drive? Well, it's all about having fun. The engine is just glorious. You can rev it and rev it right the way round to the 6,500 RPM red line, no problem at all. It's great for just tootling around town, but find some open road and open her up and let her go. In second gear, you can get to nearly 70 miles per hour. The gear change is crisp, if not a little long in the throw. The clutch is gentle, the steering absolutely precise. Head into a corner, make a couple of corrections on the steering, and you'll be out the other end, no problem at all. It goes exactly where you point it, particularly coming around a roundabout, say, where other cars tend to drift. This is just precise, it's spot on. Now, I do have a couple of moans, and these are about the 206 range in general, not just the GTI. The first is that because of the steeply raked front bonnet, you have no idea where the front bumper is, which makes it rather difficult for parking. One of the whole ideas of buying a small car is to be able to maneuver it easily into tight spaces, but if you can't see and judge where the front of the car is, that makes life very difficult. The second is the 206 has quite the worst visibility through a rear view mirror I have ever come across. Now, in most cars, you look behind your rear view mirror, you can see a full image of the car behind you. In this, it chops off about half of the car. I don't know whether that's because of the rear screen or where the mirror is positioned, but it really is bad. And in something like this GTI version, you want to be keeping a close lookout behind you for those boys in blue. Okay, here comes the technical bit. You get a new EW10 J4 engine in the 206 GTI, which is a 2-litre 16-valve overhead cam unit producing 137 brake horsepower. It drives the front wheels through a 5-speed gearbox, and the chassis and suspension have been adapted to suit the GTI. You get disc brakes all round, ABS, and of course it's built in the Ryton plant at Coventry. performance out on the road feels really great. Official figures give the 0 to 60 time as about 8.5 seconds at a top speed of 130 miles an hour, but in reality it feels quicker like that. The ride is firm, as you would expect with this sort of car, but not perhaps as raw as some of its predecessors. Now, although I've said this car is quick, you get the feeling that maybe Peugeot are holding something back with this particular GTI, and that maybe something a bit quicker, something a bit hotter, like they did with the 306 range, is on the cards. The interior of the 206 GTI, I have to say, is very smart. It's a mixture of cloth, leather and Alcantara seats. You get automatic digital air conditioning as standard, although unfortunately we didn't have it on our test car. You also get dual airbags, CD auto changer, alarm and deadlocks, and the option of satellite navigation too. Plus these great drilled pedals and the alloy gear lever, all for a great on-the-road price of £13,995. For those of us who really enjoy our motoring, who like to take cars out and have a bit of fun, the Peugeot 206 GTI is what it's all about. It's smile on your face motoring. Faced with an evening of nothing on the telly, this is the sort of car that would make you pick up the keys and go out for a drive just for the sheer hell of it. In fact, I think I'd even miss one or two of my favourite programmes to do just that.
You're watching Motor Week on Men and Motors, and now let's see what Ginny Buckley makes of the new Mazda Premacy.
There's nothing like a good day out at the beach, but how do you get here when you've got mum and dad, 3 kids, beach towels, buckets and spades, suntan lotion, a picnic, and of course some umbrellas? Well, you could make the journey in Mazda's new Premacy. There's plenty of room in there for all the family. And if you fork out on a ferry ticket, it's a much cheaper way of letting the family experience some Viva España than if you had to buy 5 seats on a plane. The Premacy sells itself on its spaciousness and also on its user-friendly interior. It can transport loads up to 2.6 metres long, and the seats can be arranged in over 100 different positions. Now, quite why you'd want to do that, I suppose, is another matter, but still it'll give the kids a new game to play on that long drive to Spain. Oh yes, there are plenty of seat settings. The front passenger seat and central rear seat fold flat to form tabletops. All 3 independent rear seats can be single, double folded or completely removed. And there's also the option of an extremely spacious 2 seats for passengers in the back once the centre seat is removed. We just don't have time in this programme to show you all the other variations the Premacy claims to have. We can tell you, however, that these seats are very light and they fit in and out of the car with no problems. Now, while Mazda may have been very imaginative with the seating arrangements inside the cabin, it's about as dull as they come. Sensible, yes. Attractive, no. Well, not unless you've got a liking for lots and lots of grey plastic. When a car manufacturer is going to realise that we've all gone very stylish and minimalist and do all our shopping in large Swedish superstores? Still, on the positive side, there's plenty of equipment, it feels very solid and everything is well laid out. Now, most of us know that cars like this, although they're very practical, they are sadly lacking in any kind of driving excitement. I mean, you wouldn't exactly relish getting behind the wheel of one, would you? And the Premacy is no exception. It's a pretty rotten drive. Around town, it feels really quite cumbersome. This 1.8 engine just doesn't have the power that you need to zip in and out of traffic. It isn't responsive enough, and I can't even say that it's small enough to make it easy to park. And when you get it out on the open road on the motorway, things aren't any better. It feels a very, very fidgety ride. The suspension is far too soft, the steering is very light, and you find yourself correcting a lot of oversteer. And matters aren't helped any by this automatic gearbox. It revs far too high and it makes you feel as if you're behind the wheel of an extremely large lawnmower. I think if you're going to go for the Premacy, a far better option would be to go for the manual. The seating position does suit me, but if you try and get the seat back to its furthest position, anybody with long legs is really going to struggle in here, although they do, of course, have plenty of headroom, which is a good thing. The other problem is that the adjustments to move the seat around are hidden down the side down here, and it's really hard to get your hand down to it. Things aren't looking too good so far, are they really?
Price depends very much on specification. The standard GXI starts at £14,700 on the road. The top of the range GSI is priced at £16,850 for the manual and just over 17.5 grand for the automatic.
On a more positive note though, the cabin is a nice place to be. It's very light and airy in here. And I've got to tell you, it's also a healthy place to be. That's because this is the first car in the world to be fitted with a special air filter. It gets rid of all the nasties in polluted air, as well as cigarette smoke. Well, it may not be such a nice drive, but at least it'll keep those nasty pollutants at bay. You know, it's a worrying thought. It's probably healthier in there than it is out here.
Like it or not, the Premacy is smaller than your average MPV. Now, this suggests that its title as a mini MPV is that bit more logical. In fact, the Premacy is the same width and only a tiny bit longer than Mazda's 626 Estate, which was recently featured on the programme. Overall, the look of the Premacy holds its own reasonably well. It's emphasised by the shapely headlights at the front, directing attention to the 5-point grille, a theme that's carried over to the rear window, providing you with good driving visibility. Mazda have attempted to add a slightly sporty look to this Premacy GSI. These alloy wheels come as standard, along with the rear boot spoiler. It does, however, seem a pity that some of this creative flair failed to make it under the bonnet. Although Mazda's new addition, the Premacy, is a mini MPV, in fact they're planning to build a 7-seater larger MPV which will be based on it. Both of these cars will join a market that's just flooded with vehicles like this, and it's expecting new arrivals in the shape of the Vauxhall Concept A and Ford's Focus MAV. So do we really need another one?
It's most definitely a mini MPV, but the whole purpose of it is it can be used for anything. It's more important now today than ever that people have a quality lifestyle. So therefore you can use it for work, and it's compact, easy to park and drive. It's also very user-friendly for weekends and leisure purposes. So it fits quite neatly in the marketplace as a mini MPV.
So would I buy one? Well, I've got to admit that I think it looks pretty good, and there is plenty of space inside, which makes it a good practical buy. But I'm afraid there aren't enough thrills in the driving department for me. And besides, I'm not in the market for sensible yet. I'm missing one vital ingredient. I don't have 2.4 kids.
Coming up after the break, we take a look at some of the cars that made Chrysler such a big name in the United States. Join us then after the break. Next on Motor Week, Ken Gibson is going to be test driving a Jeep Wrangler somewhere in the middle of the channel. Brian, why?
He's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, Ken, so we came up, this is the ultimate challenge. The Goodwin Sands, they've sucked up something like 1,800 ships have gone down there. So we said, Ken, come on, here's a real challenge, have a go at that. And I've told him if he loses his Wrangler, he's got to stay with it, because the car won't get stuck. It's down to him if there's a problem.
Oh well, see you then, Ken. Good luck. You poor mad fool.
Welcome to Goodwin Sands, destination for the most bizarre and wacky road test I have ever done. Goodwin Sands, you see, is in the middle of the English Channel. 7 miles from Dover, back there, France is over there. It also happens to be one of the deadliest sections of natural sea hazards in the world. Over the years, the Sands has claimed 1,800 ships, 1 lighthouse, and has had more stories and legends about it than the Loch Ness Monster. Jeep Wrangler. They reckon it's the vehicle that can take you to places that other vehicles can't get to. I know that, but I think this is actually getting near to the ridiculous, because even driving a Jeep Wrangler in the middle of the channel gives me a slightly worrying feeling. I've driven the Wrangler in mountains, across snow, across rivers, but if anyone had actually said I was going to drive it on sand dunes in the middle of the channel, I'd have told them frankly they were absolutely barking mad. And I have to actually say, I actually feel rather barking mad at this very moment as I bounce along this beach. And I'm not alone, would you believe it, in this rather bizarre venture. I've been joined on Goodwin Sands by 300 other mad Brits who've actually ventured out here for an afternoon on the sands. And in true English fashion, there's everything going on in these sands. They're playing cricket, there's a football penalty shootout, there's welly throwing competitions. If the French could only see us from Calais now, this would confirm that we're all as mad as hatters. And you know what I really like about Goodwin Sands? There's absolutely no traffic. Not a traffic jam in sight, not a policeman, not a speed camera. It's wonderful. Mind you, you can't go very fast anyway because it's like going up and down. I don't know, there's more bumps and dunes here. You need a seriously good stomach to cope. Thank God, a sign for Dover. Goodwin Sands has been very good, but they tell me you can disappear with the sands, and I'm very relieved to see this sign. I think I'm now going to head this way and look for my hovercraft, because I think I've had just about enough time at the sands. I think it's time to pack up the bucket and spades and head for home.
On a sunny day like today in Dover, it's difficult to ignore the thousands of people setting off for their annual jaunt across France with the family, probably in a car packed full of screaming kids. Now, a lot of families have decided to take the plunge and invest in a large MPV-style vehicle, only to discover that that just means there's more room to argue in. Chrysler have got together with Panasonic, and they've equipped a Voyager with more technology than you can shake a remote at to create probably the ultimate in in-car entertainment. And it's over here. Do you remember when CD were the two letters that represented the last word in technology? Well, now they're three letters, DVD, digital video discs. And they're in here, as are the screens. Not one, not two, three television screens in here. This is one high-tech interior. And your first question is, where is all the technology? Well, it's hidden. It all gets a little bit James Bond. Okay, immediately you can see there's a fairly standard little stereo unit here. More on that later. But other than that, it's standard Voyager kit. Oh, but it's not. It's hidden. For instance, here in my sun visor, I have the controller unit for the DVD system itself. And then those three screens. Well, number one, for my front seat passenger, is in their visor. And then behind me, down the length of the car, well, we have number two. And right at the back, number three, for the rear seat passengers. They're also equipped with a set of headphones each. So what can happen is on that long journey, me, the driver, sits here, perhaps listening to something refined like Radio 4 or Classic FM. And then my passengers, well, one of them might want to watch a video from the DVD system. One might want to watch the television all at the same time. And ultimately, somebody at the back might perhaps want to play a video game. It's all possible. Complete isolation. Lovely. Picture it. It's got to be better than playing who can spot the most cows by the side of the road on a long journey. Kids are in the back, larking about as always. Telly on. Very soon, no more larking about. It's actually quite interesting. So let's recap where we've gone from the old days when you had a little radio with two knobs on that just about tuned, or even the old 16 tracks. We have up front a very elaborate stereo. We have a DVD, that's digital video disc system. That means digital quality video is available throughout the car, thank you. We have one screen at the front in the sun visor, we have one here for me, and we have one here for the rear two passengers. And then, to complete the effect, we have the headphones, which can be tuned to whichever source you're listening to at any time. Settle back and enjoy the journey. It's very much like being on a plane, really. I presume there is a hostess somewhere, isn't there? Oh, and about that stereo, well, we are talking something just a little bit special here. Believe me, the kids are just going to love this. Apparently it has 450 watts RMS. Whatever that is, all I'm told is that's quite loud. It also has a remote control. You've gone out and spent big money on installing kind of the ultimate in-car entertainment system, so we are talking pop star stuff, aren't we? In terms of money, it's not going to be for everybody.
Well, it's probably looking at about the best part of £7,000–8,000 that we've done to this car, but you don't need to go to that extent. You could put a DVD system into a vehicle for about £2,000 and still have visual and audio sound from it. So it depends to what extent you want to go, and of course this is a show vehicle, you've got to remember.
We've come a long way from the old scratchy stereos that just received AM, obviously. Is this it? Is this the ultimate? Is this the newest?
Well, this is the latest technology, DVD, in a car, and it's sort of a bit of a world's first as well. But it's to what extent you want to go. You can go bigger, you can go better than what we've got here. We wanted good quality sound and we wanted a very subtle installation, and I think we've managed to achieve that. We do have other areas where we have speakers everywhere on show, and it's to what extent you want to stop. Of course, the other boundary you have is what size of car you've got. The bigger the car, the bigger the amount of speakers.
As manufacturers are turning their attention to making the interior of cars nicer places for us to be, is in-car entertainment going to be the next field of development, the next big step?
Yes, it is. I mean, more and more people are tailoring their requirements with CD becoming the main media now. Cassette is really starting to die.
This has been the first time any programme has been able to play with this technology, with what must be the cutting edge in-car entertainment. It's not so much a case of a drive-in movie as taking the entire cinema with you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board. Today's movie will be Dumbo. Starts in 5 minutes. Popcorn is available. I think there's some stuck down the bottom of the seat, actually. Settle back and enjoy the journey. And that's it from Dover. I'll leave you with a look at what's coming up in next week's Motor Week. Until then, see ya. On next week's programme, the Seat Toledo, Ginny Buckley gets to grips with this new model based on the VW platform. Phil Sayer test drives the brand new Nissan Primera in Spain and its Jeep versus Defender, with two of the most rugged off-roaders on the market compared. That's next week on Motor Week.